What could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? Everything. Just everything. Oh, we're going back. Oh, yes. We're going back to Bubsy 3D because you guys know that I just can't get enough of this shit.
Some of you have wondered why I took down my original Bubsy 3D review. I was not satisfied with it. I didn't hurt Bubsy 3D enough. No, I just scratched the surface of this blemish of gaming. Nah, blemish isn't good enough. This is an abomination. A sin committed by Accolade and Idatech. So I watched my original Bubsy 3D review, and I thought to myself, no, this will not do. I can make this better.
Oh, they couldn't let Bubsy die at 2, could they? Oh no! They had to have him go out with a bang. And you really couldn't go out with a bigger bang than this ball of fail.
And if you don't know who Idatech is, here's a refresher. Remember Siphon Filter? Yeah, they developed that game after Bubsy 3D. Someone must have sold their soul to keep that company afloat after they brought to life this Frankenstein's monster of a game.
Every time I review a bad game, someone just has to bring this one up. You just can't let it die, can you? Well, guess what? Here's a list of games that I would rather play than Bubsy 3D.
Everything that could have gone wrong with this game did. It's so bad that they had to lie on the cover of the game in hopes that people would buy it. Obviously, this was damage control due to the scathing reviews that it got. Look at these lies. EGM calls Bubsy 3D stunning, original. Bubsy 3D climbs back to the top. Check it out. And PS Extreme gave it the Gold X Award, stating, one of the sleeper hits of '96. An experience that no action platform gamer should miss.
And just saying that makes me want to vomit. It's pure bile. And you're probably wondering, good God! How can anyone say anything like that about this game? Well, I wasn't content with just wondering. Oh no! I had to find out.
The guy who wrote the preview for EGM said that you couldn't be too negative in preview articles. What he wrote wasn't actual praise, but was more just ambiguous. But Accolade knew this pile of fecal matter wasn't going to sell, so they twisted the words around to make them sound positive.
I actually have a theory about that. I think what they did is they took the guy who wrote that PS Extreme article about Bubsy. They took him outside the PS Extreme building, or whatever building it is. And they had a private plane sitting out there, just waiting. And the editor-in-chief says, get on. So they get onto the plane, they fly, and they go over the Pacific Ocean. The door opens, and the guy just goes, excuse yourself. And the guy's probably wondering, wait, what do you mean, excuse myself? Excuse yourself. And then when the guy refused to jump out of the plane, they pushed him off. Because you know what? Firing was too good for him.
And when I said Frankenstein's monster, I mean it. Just look at this game. It's disgusting. There's filth everywhere, and it's offensive to your sense of sight and hearing.
If it had an odor and a taste, it'd probably be something that you'd find in a prison toilet. But let's not forget about the sense of touch, though. I won't go into specifics, but don't drop the soap.
Although I'm starting to think that dancing with Bubba might be a better experience than playing this game. After all, I would probably get the common courtesy of a reach around. The graphics bring new meaning to the phrase eyesore. You can practically feel every single polygon slicing into your retinas like so much broken glass. The reason being is because they decided to use the high-res capabilities of the PlayStation, something that was supposed to be meant for fully rendered cutscenes, not gameplay. These graphics are nowhere near finished. The ground is a lazy checkerboard pattern, the models show geometry tearing, and are extremely basic to the point of looking like stick figures. And the animation is poor, to say the least. Instead of moving from one position to the next, the movements just pop from one position to the next.
And the sound is so annoying, and you're pretty much going to be listening to this the whole time.
This guy gives stupid a bad name. 2 points. That's the ticket. You're not so tough, Tag. You're it. Overbite City.
Huh. My ears are bleeding. That's not good.
Bubsy's voice is provided by Lanny Manila, the voice of Ivy from Soul Calibur and Rouge the Bat from Sonic Adventure 2 and Sonic Heroes. You know what they say, you gotta start at the bottom, and she could not have chosen a bottom any lower than this. The background music is so boring. I swear it's only one track that they remixed only a few times. And the music is almost non-existent, it's pretty much at a whispered volume. One of the things that I forgot to mention in the first review was that the sound effects will only play for things that are in front of you. The second the object making the sound is off camera, the sound is gone. The enemies make annoying sounds when you're near them and when they attack, but if they're off camera, you're not going to hear them, resulting in you taking damage.
Well, I guess if your back is turned to a falling tree, you're not gonna hear it. Sucks for you.
The control layout is fine. This game predates analog controls, so the directional pad is what moves you. In one direction only. X jumps, square charges and fires atoms, triangle glides, circle ducks, L1 allows you to move the camera, R1 does a turbo boost allowing you to run faster, and L2 and R2 hop you from side to side, although they are very small hops that are barely noticeable. But it's how the controls work is the problem. Everything is stiff, and I mean stiff, to the point where you have to stop running, turn, then keep running. Yeah, you can really only run straight forward without a problem. If you try turning while running, it's not going to work in the way that you want, as Bubsy will swerve haphazardly about. And if you turn around the corner, then the camera gets stuck and points away. And when you turn while standing, it's really slow. Not even the characters in the first Resident Evil turned this slow.
So it's pretty much stop, turn, run, stop, turn, run, stop, turn, run. Apparently they thought that this was a genius idea on how to control Bubsy.
Speaking of camera and genius ideas, every single time you jump, the camera pans downward and points straight at the ground. While this was implemented so you could aim your jumps, it doesn't work. Because if you have to jump from platform to platform, you have to stop and wait for the camera to settle back down. If you go too fast, you won't be able to see the vertical distance of the platforms because the camera hasn't had the time to set back down.
The story is... anyway, the Woolies, the bad guys from the first game, had devised a plan to steal all of Earth's wool again. So what they do is they kidnap Bubsy to bring him back to their planet so he can't stop them. For an alien race, that's kinda stupid.
Why kidnap someone who can stop you? Just kill him. If you're able to catch him, kill him. It would do all of us a favor if you killed Bubsy. We would all be much happier gamers if you killed Bubsy. So anyway, their ship crashes due to their own incompetence and Bubsy escapes. The Woolies point out that Bubsy is collecting atoms and rockets for reasons unknown to them. And the rockets and atoms are abundant resources in which they have no idea how they work and they deem them as useless.
So they flew to Earth in a rocket, powered by atoms, kidnapped Bubsy, flew back to their planet in the same rocket, powered by atoms, and rockets are abundant and useless resources on their planet. The Woolies are dumber than the bad guy in Rascal, and that guy was a moron.
The level design leaves a lot to the imagination. I mean, you really gotta sit there and just wonder, what are you looking at? Everything is just a bunch of geometric shapes. It's like everything was stuck in the alpha stages of development. Just basic shapes, solid colors, and little to no textures. And there's 18 levels, and they're all pretty massive in size, but they just feel so empty. And all the levels are essentially the same, it's just pathetic.
Remember in Portal 2 where the announcer says that if the laws of physics don't apply in the future, then God help you? That's pretty much the way to explain how the physics work in Bubsy 3D.
There's a difference between falling from jumping and falling from dropping down from a platform. You'd think that there wouldn't be, but there is. When you jump and fall from that jump, the velocity of the upward and downward momentum is the same. However, if you slip off the edge of a platform, you'll hit the ground instantly. If there's one thing in the Bubsy series that's been consistent, it's bad momentum. Every single one has had terrible momentum, and why should that change here? When you're on a platform and stop moving, you'll stop dead. But if you stop too close to the edge, you'll slide off instead of stopping. 95% of the time, to your doom.
We're somewhere around the halfway point of this nightmare. A nightmare that I had to relive. Again. I'm going to need some serious therapy when this is over.
In a game of poor choices, ranging from design to giving Bubsy another unneeded game, the enemy AI doesn't stand out too much until later stages. And I think the perfect example is here. This starfish will slam into me 3 times, draining all of my hit points, and this is around the beginning of the stage. Right here, at the very start of a stage. 3 enemies ready to fire. The game put me right in front of a firing squad. I've had Halo respawns that were nowhere near this bad. And no matter what, you're going to take some damage trying to get past these guys. Then there's these lightning things. After you defeat it, you still take damage from the 4 electrodes on the ground. This enemy AI is incredibly cheap. For the ones that fire projectiles, they'll only fire their projectiles after the first one has passed you. And the closer you are, the more projectiles that are going to be firing at you to nearly rapid fire speeds in later levels.
The collision detection is... it's terrible. It's just terrible, and I can't even describe it.
You can and will get screwed over by the collision defection. You can land next to an enemy and take damage, although this randomly happens. You can jump on top of one, kill them, and still take damage somehow. As with most platform games, there's stuff to collect, and in this game, it's atoms and rockets. Bubsy says you need to collect the rockets, but you don't have to. Their only importance is to which ending you'll get. Don't collect enough and the rocket ship malfunctions and Bubsy is stranded in space. Collect them all and Bubsy somehow ends up in the Stone Age. Either way, the bad guys invade Earth, so both endings are bad ones. Then there's the atoms.
I'm all for collectible items in video games, and somehow they even managed to screw this up, but I'm not surprised, it's Bubsy after all.
If you walk up to an atom while holding the square button, you'll grab and charge it up. Release the square button and the atom will fly off. However, the camera will follow the atom until it reaches its destination. Then the camera will fly back to Bubsy. But during that time, you can get hit because at that moment, you regain control of the character. But if the atom flies too far without hitting anything, it'll fly back to you at close to double the speed and you'll have a split second to dodge it. And sometimes you can hit an enemy with an atom without it actually touching them. It suffers from the same poor collision detection as everything else. If you manage to collect 50 atoms, you get an extra hit point, but more than likely you'll lose a life before you collect 50 atoms. But if you collect 100 atoms, you get an extra life.
Wait. What? 100 atoms gives you an extra life? Holy crap, they finally got something right. Ironically, this was the last game in the series that this happened.
Yeah, in all the past Bubsy games, if you collected 100 of the collectible item in that game, you didn't get squat. For something that was originally a ripoff of Sonic the Hedgehog, you'd think that they would have copied the get 100 of this item and get an extra life mechanic. I guess they didn't want it to be a total ripoff then. Also, the enemies don't respawn when you lose a life. I guess that's the least that they could do.
You guys probably heard me mention this before. Michael Berlin, the guy who created Bubsy, as one of the biggest dumbasses in the gaming industry. And here's why.
You see, Michael Berlin had no experience with 3D game design tools, but he had hoped that Bubsy 3D would be a hit with early 3D adopters. Then he saw Super Mario 64. He wanted to go back and rework Bubsy 3D, but Accolade was pushing for the game's release. Bubsy 3D was scheduled to come out around the same time of Super Mario 64, but they delayed it for 4 months. More than likely waiting for the hype of Super Mario 64 to die down. I can only assume that up until he saw Super Mario 64, Berlin was satisfied with the state of Bubsy 3D.
Then he blamed Bubsy 3D's failure on Super Mario 64.
How he was able to make that connection is a cognitive fallacy of proportions so gargantuan that the very earth will crack beneath its weight. I suppose Resident Evil is at fault too. After all, it came out 6 months before Bubsy 3D, and I guess we can chalk Tomb Raider up there too, as it came out 2 weeks later.
No. He and his team are to blame for doing such a sloppy job.
And that's why Michael Berlin is probably the biggest moron in the gaming industry. Well, was actually, because he quit game design. Thank God. And went on to make music in some band that no one has ever heard of or cares about. But I guess he just couldn't see the writing on the wall because Bubsy's massive head is in the way of everything. And the camera dragging along the ground and focused square on his butt doesn't help either.
It's interesting that the cover says that this is an experience that no action platform gamer should miss. And I 100% agree with that.
No, seriously, there's people out there who say they've played bad games, or will say things like E.T. or Action 52 are the worst games ever. But you won't know what bad truly is until you've played Bubsy 3D. Because even with other bad games, once you figure out the mechanics, then there's really no problem that you can't overcome. But this is something entirely different. It's an entity all of its own. I played this game a lot as a kid in the sheer determination to conquer it. Yes, I beat it as a kid, and this is my second review of the game. But there's still just no way to overcome any of these problems. The only way to beat it is with pure blind dumb luck and a brute force method of pushing through everything that's in your way.
If there is a hell, I could only imagine that my own personal one would be playing this game for all eternity.
I'm probably one of the few game critics out there that has fully gone through this game, and I did it twice. I've seen other game critics do reviews of this game but never get past the first level, so they're only scratching the surface. It gets far worse as the game goes on. Much, much worse. Not only have I shown that, but proved it as well. Even the controls, camera, and graphics in Rascal aren't this bad. In fact, I'm changing the Rascal rating to liquid shit. As you play Bubsy 3D, you can't help but think that they've hit rock bottom, but then surprises you by digging.
Bubsy 3D proves that you can indeed, in fact, succeed in failing. The developers tried their hardest to make a game that exceeds the expectations of what bad is.
Even everything that's wrong is wrong, and no, that's not a double negative. Usually you can ignore bad graphics and sound, and you can usually work with a bad camera and bad controls, but you can't do that with this game. It's a game so bad that even if you didn't have a brain, you wouldn't believe how terrible of a game it is. Let's say you're sitting on the couch, controller in your hands, and a spinal cord. That's all you have. Even your spinal cord will say, Hey, I'm not a brain or anything, but this is a bad game. Bubsy 3D is a game that's so bad that it just slaps you in the face with how bad it is. You may put the disc in and think, maybe this won't be so bad and I'm not wasting my life, and the game just slaps you and says, oh yes you are. Just slapping you right in the face. Oh, it's just as bad as you think it is. Look at you, sitting there at 4 in the morning with one sock, playing a game about an annoying bobcat on an alien planet trying to get home, and you won't shut it off because you're thinking it's bound to get better.
And that's why you play it. You think that it can't be this bad. Something good has to come out of this.
But there's no light at the end of this tunnel. None at all. Because you may think that this was the last Bubsy game, and no more will ever come out of this since Accolade went defunct, and that we as gamers are free from it. No, it's my sad duty to report that Accolade was bought out by Infogrames, who also bought out Atari and changed their name to Atari SA. So yes, Atari owns Bubsy. It's quite possible that he can return and wreak havoc on consoles once again like the virus he is. And when that day happens, gamers will cry out in abject terror, a scream that will be heard around the world as the dead has risen from the grave.
You know, Games like this have destroyed companies and soiled childhoods. And it's time for some payback. Oh yeah. Wait. That's too good for it. I got something better.
Burn, baby, burn! Oh, I am rock hard. I'm gonna beat my dick like it owes me money when this is over.
Oh, it's perfect time for this now. It's over. The nightmare is finally over.